The Construction Association of Michigan, CAM, has been helping commercial and industrial contractors and suppliers grow since 1885. Now's the time to join. Visit buildwithcam.com. If you're a construction company looking to grow, CAM offers resources to help you build your staff, find more projects, and expand your network. Join today. The Construction Association of Michigan. They're one industry, one resource, one CAM. Join today at buildwithcam.com.
Today's episode of CAM's Building Michigan podcast is sponsored by Priority Health, endorsed health insurance carrier for CAM members.
So right now, we've all been feeling lots of shifts in our lives. We've gone from crazy busy schedules to way more time with our loved ones, from commuting to the office to working from our couches. And that's okay, because Priority Health is always ready to shift right there with you. So whether you're experiencing a shift in employment or you're prepping for a new member of the family to arrive, Priority Health has you covered. Priorities shift, so maybe it's time your health insurance company did too. Find your plan at PriorityHealth.com.
It's that time of year. Time to review your workers' compensation plan and shift to coverage that pays you back. CAMCOMP, part of the Construction Association of Michigan, is the state's leading self-insured group designed for the construction industry. The safer your employees, the more money you get back. The average payback to members is 45% of their premium, a very smart investment. Find out how safety pays with CAMCOMP. Call Juan Ramirez at 586-790-7810 or go to www.camcomp.net.
Hello, and welcome to our 12th episode of the Building Michigan podcast, produced for Michigan's construction industry by the Construction Association of Michigan, CAM. My name is Kevin Koehler. I'm the president of CAM and your host for Building Michigan. Our podcast is designed for the construction industry here in the Great Lakes State. Each 25 to 30-minute episode will feature conversations on industry topics, including a variety of conversations with industry leaders, discussing construction projects, trends, business development, workforce, safety, legislation, products, equipment, and other related topics. With that being said, let's get into today's episode. This is Season 2, Episode 12. Today's episode features a conversation with Jim Bitterle, author of the book Unquittable, Finding and Keeping the Talent You Need, and also our keynote speaker for the CAM Annual Meeting and Luncheon, to be held in conjunction with our upcoming CAM Great Lakes Design and Construction Expo on Wednesday, February 15th at the Suburban Collection Showplace in Novi. CAM, in partnership with the Home Builders Association of Southeast Michigan, hosts an all-day event featuring a morning economic breakfast, hundreds of exhibitors showing all things construction, and of course, the CAM Annual Meeting and Luncheon. The trade show, as most of you know, is free to attend, and tickets are available at miconstructionexpo.com. Tickets for the economic breakfast and the CAM annual meeting can also be purchased at miconstructionexpo.com. Okay, before getting started, let me give you a little background on our guest today. Jim Bitterle is a managing partner at EDSI, which he joined in 2008 to lead its management consulting division. He has 34 years of corporate leadership and management consulting experience. Today, Jim is responsible for EDSI's national consulting operations. He is currently spearheading EDSI's efforts to help clients optimize their organizations to support growth, diversification, and cultural improvement. As a part of these efforts, Jim has authored the new book, Unquittable. Jim is also a seasoned trainer and speaker. He is regularly rated as a top speaker at events. As a prior divisional president and COO, Jim provides real-world examples as well as deep subject matter expertise as a trainer or speaker. Prior to his consulting career, Jim spent 11 years as an executive with profit and loss responsibility, leading both domestic and international business units for multinational corporations such as Flint Inc. and Gibson Musical Instruments. Jim holds a bachelor's degree from Michigan State University and an MBA from the Kellogg School at Northwestern University. Jim, welcome to CAM's Building Michigan podcast.
Hey, thanks, Kev. Happy to be here.
Well, we're super excited to have you. And most of our listeners probably don't know this, but you and I have some past experiences together as you and EDSI helped develop our 3D program for use across the state of Michigan. That program, which stood for Develop, Design, Deliver, helped matriculate high school students through all things construction, and some of them even got internships. And as I know, some are still in the business today, which is super exciting.
Yeah, it's really cool to see young people get into the industry and find out that they love it and stay.
Well, without your help, we would never would have been able to pull that off. And it's still in existence today. High schools and schools are still calling for participation in that. So
That's
I think
outstanding.
everybody should be aware of that. Well, hey, let's get started with some questions. I'm sitting here holding Unquittable, which is a paperback, I don't know, 300 and some pages, great read, really easy to read. What was the impetus behind this? What made you write the book?
Yeah, Kevin, we work with so many different organizations, and it's sad because everybody is struggling with talent related issues, right? From filling intro jobs, all the way up to really high level management jobs, as well as technical jobs, skilled jobs, et cetera. So the issues are pervasive, right? And we're seeing organizations in some cases, not able to grow, and in other cases actually failing because they can't find the talent they need. And yet we see other organizations that do really, really well, that are sort of winning the war for talent. And so what we wanted to do is just really be able to share through our experience with organizations and through lots of research, to come up with what are those things that companies can do to make sure that they win this war for talent. And that was what it was about. We wanted an easy way to compile all this information and share it with our clients. And it ended up turning into a book, right? Because it's sort of a recipe for here are some of the basic things you need to do to make sure you're gonna do okay over the next 10 years, really.
Yeah, actually, it's a really easy read with some great real life, kind of examples and some thought provoking, outcomes. So it's a great book. Hey, Jim, we should probably explain what EDSI is, the company that you're managing partner of, for our listeners as well. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, we've been around since 1979, headquartered down in Dearborn. And it started out as Educational Data Systems Incorporated. It was all about educating people, customized training, that type of thing. And we have since grown to have we've got about 950 employees. We're all over the eastern half of the U.S. And right before the pandemic, we were the only company in the state of Michigan. This is what I won't brag about EDSI too much, but this is one thing. We were the only company in the state of Michigan to win all the best places to work awards.
Oh,
so
wow.
We're pretty excited about that. And honestly, Kevin, a lot of the issues that everybody was having, we were having those same issues. So we became very intentional about saying, well, what do we have to do a better job to retain millennials at the time, and to really attract and retain the best talent? And so it was through a lot of our research and work with outside clients that we said, hey, we got to start doing more of this stuff ourselves. So sort of the old eating your own cooking adage.
Sure. Yeah. If you're going to talk the talk,
it's worked out great.
Yeah. Perfect. If you're going to talk the talk, you might as well walk the walk, right?
You got that right. Yeah.
Well, let's flip it a little more to construction centric for
Sure.
just a second. And as we've discussed this, and obviously 3D helps with some of that, but finding workers for the construction industry is extremely difficult today. Getting young people to think about a skilled trade as a potential career, as opposed to, boy, I'd rather go to college and do this and that. You and I know that skilled tradesmen can make upwards of six figures, great pensions, great health insurance, provide for a family extremely well, and then have a skill set that nobody can take from you. You can go anywhere in the country or in the world and work. So I know it's a problem in the construction industry. I assume it's a problem, as you're explaining, in other industries. But what do you think we can do to alleviate some of that, or does the book talk about any of that?
Yeah, well, I mean, Kevin, you're spot on, right? This problem transcends construction, although construction has its own unique set of issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have got 10.5 million open positions in America today.
Wow.
We only have about 5 million job seekers. And really about 2017 was the first time we ever had a situation where we had more jobs than we had those willing to work. right? So really, since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, that was never an issue. And now it's a modern issue that we have, and it's going to get worse over the next decade. So yes, it's bad in construction, and it's bad in many, many industries. And there's just a lot of variables going on that have created this situation. So it's something that good organizations are paying close attention to, and they're creating strategies to really attract, retain, and develop great talent.
That's that's extremely important, especially for our contractors out there. I mean, there's ways to retain and attract those people, and hopefully we can touch on some of that today. And then, of course, you're a keynote speaker at the annual meeting. I'm sure you'll hit on some of that or give them some great tips out there. So do you think the problem's going to get better or worse over the next 5 years?
So it's interesting, Kevin, because the problem was really bad, really before the pandemic. And the pandemic hit, right? And then we had this sharp increase in unemployment, which rebounded very, very quickly. We're already down to unemployment below pre-pandemic levels. And when you look at all of the trends and you look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is sort of the governmental body that really looks at labor across the country, they project it's going to continue to get worse. And you have some big trends too going on, right? I mean, we're losing 4 million baby boomers out of the job market every year. We lost an extra 3 million during the pandemic. In terms of the normal rate of attrition, we lost 3 million. We lost another 1 million women out of the workforce during the pandemic. We don't know if they're going to come back. And so we have some really unique things. And the other thing, and this impacts construction significantly, when you look at immigration, the net immigration numbers, they've been going down for 10 years. And now it's become like this political game, and it's been a problem for years. We just need a cure for it, right? We need to fix and figure out immigration because, frankly, we need more people. Last year, the net immigration level coming into this country was the lowest level it's been in well over a decade.
Yeah, that's interesting because all you see on the news is the southern borders being invaded, and
Yeah, and so and there's logical and good arguments on both sides of the equation. We just need to figure out how can we process these folks so the good ones get into the country. How can we do it quickly? And then let's align these folks with some of these industries that desperately need people.
Yeah, for sure, i.e. construction.
Yes.
So, you kind of answered my next question, which was the problem exacerbated by the pandemic, which it obviously didn't help, right? And we had more people leave the workforce on top of that.
It certainly made it worse, right? And you know that some of these things we just don't know. We don't have data right now to tell us what sort of rebound we're going to have. But we do know population growth. We know those that are aging out, and we do know the issue is going to continue to get worse. And then when you look at construction, there's the double headwind of there have been some longer term trends that have really hurt the industry. When you just look at school systems, how many vocational programs have been cut?
Yeah.
How many parents have not encouraged their kids to go, say, into the trades, right? They've encouraged them to go to college. Not to mention the schools are sort of incented to send kids off to college. So we have some really significant issues. And I think there's something that the industry can do to help. And that's really doing a better job marketing itself, right?
And I think we're starting to do that. At least I know from a construction standpoint, we have organizations that are solely focused on getting youth into the field of construction. We're spending more and more time and effort to attract young talent. We're going out on these school visits. We have these different programs that we're attracting young kids in so we can show them all the cool things that construction does. I know several of our union partners are very active in that with the Big Dig and some of the things operating engineers do. It's important, and that's what we have to do more of.
Well, you guys, CAM has certainly been really progressive about doing that. Even when we did the boot camps, in the 3D program, I mean, what was that, 5-6 years ago?
Yeah, exactly.
We weren't seeing that anywhere else in the country at the time. So you guys have been, I think, ahead of the curve on that one. unfortunately, we need to do more of that, right?
Yeah,
We need all of the companies in the industry to sort of get involved in really promoting, because people can make great money in the industry, as we all know, right?
yeah,
And they
for
can have
sure.
wonderful careers. You just have to market those careers and just sort of the compensation as well that they can earn.
I read a statistic. Not only do we need something like 300,000 construction workers in the next 10 years to fill the openings, but 4 out of 5 skilled tradesmen are over 50 years old today, and they're going to be retiring in the next 5 to 10 years. And I mean, those are the people that wire the houses, that wire the buildings, that put the HVAC systems in these big buildings. Pour concrete. All these jobs that are. It's not easy. It's not. It's visceral. You have to have a skill. You have to know what you're doing, and we
Yeah.
just have to do a better job of getting more people involved.
Well, Kevin, you're right. I mean, that's another headwind for the industry, right? Is this aging of the workforce. Certainly not a helpful demographic situation for us right now. And you talked about 300,000. The last stat that I saw was about 400,000 vacancies in the industry. The industry's got what, 7.7 million
Yes.
working in it. And you and I both know that $400,000 number, our 400,000 people number, is way understated, because that's based on jobs that are posted. How many construction jobs and companies aren't even posting for these positions?
Right. Yeah, good point.
Especially the small and mid-sized companies, they're not posting because they know they're just wasting their time and their energy and their money by posting for these jobs. So I think that number is so understated. It's not even close to what reality is.
Yeah, it's disturbing. We just have to keep working towards it, keep pushing. So hey,
Yeah.
let me going back to the book here for a second, and maybe some of your studies. What are successful organizations doing to attract and retain talent? And has the pandemic changed some of that, or how has that affected things?
Yeah. Now, if I speak across industries, because that's where the best data resides sort of on a global basis, right? One of the critical things, the most fundamental thing we see with organizations that are knocking it out of the park, is they've made talent management like one of their core competencies. So they've gotten really focused on how do we attract, how do we retain, how do we engage, how do we develop our people? And let me give you an example. And this is retail is an industry that in many ways is the bottom of the barrel, right? They have the highest turnover of any industry. They struggle to fill vacant positions. And yet you look at a company like Costco, they have 6% turnover.
Wow.
Where the industry is about 80% turnover. And so you can find examples in every industry of companies that are knocking it out of the park. And it starts with they're really, really focused on being great at talent management. And then if you look around that, there are really a few things that they do that are commonalities. The first thing is they really focus on creating a great culture, right? They're very intentional about creating a great culture. And that's almost sort of the second step. Another thing that we see is they're very focused on flexibility. How do we create flexibility in our environment, right? If you have to be at a job site every day, there's a certain limitation of flexibility that you might have. But I see organizations now saying, okay, this is a busy period for us. It's going to be crazy, but we're going to give you even more PTO in the off season. And we're going to lock out Sundays and say, we're never going to work a Sunday, right? So we're seeing more unique approaches to creating more flexibility and time off for employees. And that resonates especially with younger workers.
Mm-hmm.
Purpose-driven organizations, when we look at those that are killing it, they're connecting their business to a purpose more than just making money, right? Working with a very, very large engineering firm that's all civil engineering and a lot of construction engineering work in the Midwest. And they're very focused on their purpose is to create great communities and be a part of those communities. So they're very community oriented, and everything they talk about, even when they're recruiting talent, is all about, look, we have a great company. We're very entrepreneurial. We're growing like crazy. But our thing is we want to create great communities where you live, where your family resides, et cetera. So it's all a community type focus. There's other organizations where it's maybe about the environment or building, raising money to feed the poor, whatever it might be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So creating a purpose beyond just making money is really important. And we see that as another one of those core facets that these companies that are doing really well do. And probably the last thing on that is we see these companies that are killing it. They've figured out younger workers. And one of the critical things there is they've said we have to create great career paths and growth opportunities for these young people. We have to be very intentional about showing them how they can grow. I think within the construction industry, that's an area that we need to do a better job, right? We need to be really good at saying, if you come in this job, you're going to have all these opportunities to be promoted, to grow, maybe even to make some lateral movements into some different functions, different parts of the organization, what have you. That's really important because somebody, as we all know, is when we're kids, when we're 19 years old, that first real job we have, we may find after 6 months, this is not what I want to do.
Yeah.
And for the next job. But if you're in a great organization and you like the company, you just don't like the job. If the company's smart, they'll say, hey, this kid is dependable. They got a good attitude, a good work ethic. If you don't like this job you're in, after 6 months or a year, let's talk, because we will have other opportunities. So you can grow and learn within this organization without having to change companies. And we see that those that are really doing well in this war for talent, they're very good at that.
That's an excellent point. So really 4 main points: culture, flexibility, creating a purpose-driven organizations, and then a clear growth or career path for the young people. It's interesting because I think about that and I put it in the perspective of the skilled trades, and the young person would come in as an apprentice, and they would be paid to be an apprentice, but they have to show up, they have to work, and they have to go to school to learn more. And then they become a journeyman, and then they're in the field, and then maybe their employer or the contractor that is employing them sees more, and they can make them a supervisor, or they can move them into a different level of management. So I see that in the skilled trade side, but it's interesting. Hopefully that conveys back and people are listening to this from the business perspective. So the back office perspective, the contractor's office, so to speak, and they can implement some of those ideas. Those are all great points. And one of the other things I think about, Jim, is, all this talk today about millennials and Gen Z and how do we handle all of these people? Any thoughts on what successful companies are doing to look, obviously I'm a baby boomer, so I'm a dying breed, right? I still have a phone on my desk. I got ribbed at it in my manager's meeting today because I'm the only guy that needed a phone when we got the new phone system. It's like, I don't know. Old habits die hard.
Kevin, I'm a boomer too, right? And we've talked about this before, and that is, back in the day, right? Our attitude was, you were lucky to have a job. So you showed up and you worked hard. And if you didn't like something, you just kept your mouth closed and you put your nose to the grindstone, right? And you worked.
Right.
And back then, it wasn't like today where we have a shortage of labor. Today, it's an employee's marketplace, right? They have the control. So organizations just have to change. And with your upcoming event, the focus on change is really important because we have to be, especially many of the companies that are out there are being run by people our age, right? Older Gen Xers, baby boomers, and we have a very different mentality towards work. So we have to change, and we have to be willing to change. And with younger workers, to your point, yes, there are very specific things that they do. It was funny because I was just reading some research about younger workers and why are they leaving, and the turnover with younger workers 24 and under in the construction industry is over 60%.
Really? Wow, that's
really high turnover, right?
Holy smoke, yeah.
My sense is that it's because we don't do a great job of changing our behaviors, our attitudes, our management styles, our cultures within our organizations to be more accommodating and engaging for younger workers. So the issue really, there's two big things that jump out. In fact, Gallup did a huge study on generations and what they look for when they're looking for a job. And two things that came out of that study for millennials, and they separate themselves out from the other generations. That is, they want opportunities for growth. And there's actually very compelling brain science behind it. And there's behavioral science that tells us why they are that way. And I can go into that if you want me to. But they also want opportunities to develop, to learn. These younger people grew up in an environment that was changing so much faster than the environment you and I grew up in.
Sure.
And so what they learned was if they didn't keep learning, they would fall behind. And if they fell behind, they would get this sense of alienation, which is a very strong negative human emotion. And so people fight those, right? Nobody wants to be alienated. Nobody wants that feeling because it's a terrible feeling. So it's a motivator to make people want to keep learning. And so they've learned a behavior, which is we got to keep learning. So they go into a job or a career and they expect to keep learning. It's just they're naturally wired that way.
I never really stopped to think about that, but you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, they're constantly evolving, right? Every game they play on, all these gamers and the iPhones, and they're constantly learning new things. And it translates into real life. I mean, they still want that stimulation. That makes a ton of sense.
Kevin, in your example of the game is perfect, right? Because when you look at young people, they grew up playing video games. When you and I were kids, right? I mean, I remember the first
Pong.
game was Pong.
Yeah. Oh man, I remember that too.
It was not that compelling after about an hour. But you look at kids today, right? And what they do is they play a game and they beat a level and they get
Right.
the dopamine release in the brain, so they feel great. They play, they beat the next level, and they keep going on level by level by level fairly quickly on a relative basis. And they become drug addicts to these brain chemicals. They get into a job and all of a sudden they're in the same role for 3 years. It feels like a failure to them. In a game, if they got to a level that they couldn't pass, they'd say, this is stupid, and they'd quit it and they'd find another game to play.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing in the work environment, right? I've been here for a year and I haven't been promoted. I'm going to go find another company where I can move faster.
That's an excellent analogy. I hadn't really considered that, but that's a definite point that you should spend a little time on during your keynote, because that's
Sure.
If nothing else, I guess other people probably have thought of it, but it's eye-opening to me. It helps me understand where they're coming from a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And try to develop ways to keep that education moving and keep their career path moving forward. So we're getting a little short on time, and we could talk about this for hours. And I want to save some good stuff for the annual meeting as well. But the talent pipeline in construction, as I mentioned, is a constraint. Why do you think this is, and is there anything you think that we can do about it? And then I have a couple of final questions, and we'll wrap up.
Yeah, I think it goes back to, from a pipeline standpoint, there isn't a silver bullet, right? Part of the problem are parents, right? People like me, people like you,
Mm-hmm.
our kids off to college instead of into the trades. And the whole educational system and the funding and the incentives that they have right now are not geared to sending people into the trades, right? They just aren't. And voc schools have been disappearing, right? So we have a system that's hurting us. The other side is the marketing piece, right? We all need, and as we talked about before, you guys have done a great job of really promoting the industry and trying to get young people involved. But we need to make sure people really understand that they can make, I have a son, and you and I have talked about this before,
Mm-hmm.
who his own painting company. He's 31 years old. I would be willing to bet $1,000 that he makes more money than 95% of his college educated friends, those that graduated from college.
I believe it.
And he loves the autonomy of what he does, et cetera. So we have to do a better job of marketing the financial piece, as well as all the other benefits to being in the trades, right? because there are a ton of them. And I think then the other side is not only the marketing piece, but then we need to rethink our organizations, our cultures, and how do we create a more inviting and engaging place for these younger workers. And it really means that we're going to have to make some hard mental changes ourselves.
Yeah, it starts with us.
We're predisposed to thinking certain ways about workers.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, Jim, I usually end all my podcasts with asking you if you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom for our listeners today. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah. So honestly, Kevin, you can succeed and you can do great as a business owner in the construction world, but you have to be willing to change, because those old behaviors, those old protocols, they're not going to fly with these younger workers. And so we have to really look at what they want, what they like, and put them in an environment where they'll be engaged. I will tell you, I've seen tons of younger workers with an unbelievable work ethic that are super engaged, that are great workers, but you have to put them into the right environment first.
Yeah, you have to prepare them for success, and that fits in perfectly to our theme for the annual meeting, which is the challenge of change and rising to that challenge, which we're super excited to have you as our keynote speaker at. And I want to remind our listeners to come out and see Jim in person on Wednesday, February 15th, at the CAM annual meeting held at the Suburban Showplace in Novi. This happens during the Great Lakes Design and Construction Expo, and the luncheon is by invite only to CAM members, but there are additional tickets available for purchase, and they are available at miconstructionexpo.com. So once again, that's miconstructionexpo.com. The trade show that day is free to anyone at all. Mostly people in construction who we encourage to come through, but it's free and it runs from 9 to 4. And those tickets are also available on miconstructionexpo.com, and they are free of charge. And for any of our listeners interested in all things economic, we do have a economist from the University of Michigan that'll be presenting the construction outlook at our breakfast meeting that morning. It'll be at 7:30 in the morning, and those tickets will be purchased as well at miconstructionexpo.com. And in closing, Jim, on behalf of all of us at CAM, myself and our producer, Tim Andrews, thank you for being with us today on CAM's Building Michigan podcast.
Hey, thank you, Kevin, and thanks for everything you guys do.
Thank you for listening to Building Michigan, the official podcast of the Construction Association of Michigan, hosted by Kevin Koehler, CAM President. We appreciate you spending a part of your day with us. If you have a second, please share our podcast with industry colleagues, leave us a review, and connect with us at www.buildwithcam.com. That's all for now. Be sure to subscribe to Building Michigan wherever you get your podcasts, and join us for the next episode.
Today's episode of CAM's Building Michigan podcast is sponsored by Priority Health, endorsed health insurance carrier for CAM members.
So right now, we've all been feeling lots of shifts in our lives. We've gone from crazy busy schedules to way more time with our loved ones, from commuting to the office to working from our couches. And that's okay, because Priority Health is always ready to shift right there with you. So whether you're experiencing a shift in employment or you're prepping for a new member of the family to arrive, Priority Health has you covered. Priorities shift, so maybe it's time your health insurance company did too. Find your plan at PriorityHealth.com.
It's that time of year. Time to review your workers' compensation plan and shift to coverage that pays you back. CAMCOM, part of the Construction Association of Michigan, is the state's leading self-insured group designed for the construction industry. The safer your employees, the more money you get back. The average payback to members is 45% of their premium. A very smart investment. Find out how safety pays with CAMCOM. Call Juan Ramirez at 586-790-7810 or go to www.camcomp.net.
The Construction Association of Michigan, CAM, has been helping commercial and industrial contractors and suppliers grow since 1885. They provide contractors leadership through aggressive lobbying, construction project reporting, safety and education training, industry promotion, insurance, and banking. Are you an owner, developer, or buyer of construction services? Hire a CAM member to get your project done on time and under budget. They are one industry, one resource, one CAM. Check them out at buildwithcam.com.